Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament recap. And I'm happy to say that this time I was very good at making sure I remembered to take pictures of all of my games. So every game has pictures. I think I only missed like one, maybe two rounds throughout the entire thing. So I'm really, really happy about that. And yeah, hopefully it can be seen in kind of the quality of this video and just making my memory a little better because, after four games, I'm exhausted and yeah. But anyways, this was Torchlight, which in my area is kind of the big one. It's we get a lot of really, really good players for this one, and it's usually one of, if not the biggest event that's kind of run on a fairly regular basis around here. So this had 28 people. It was 4 rounds, and yeah, just taking a look here. Obviously, spoiler alert, we have the top three there. So I was not a part of it, but I did do pretty well. I pulled 3-1 and ended up with eighth place just on strength of schedule and victory points and all that stuff. But yeah, shoutouts to Reed, who you'll know if you watch any of the battle reports on this channel. He pulled in third place with his X-Men roster, and I'll go ahead and throw all of these on screen because I didn't play against any of these gentlemen. So I'll throw up their rosters if anyone's interested. So Curtis Osborne, one of the best players in the world. I last I checked, he was still like top 10 rated on Longshanks here, but he was bringing out some Emma today, and this was his list here, and he took first place. Tied, it was a strike the schedule difference here, but tied with the 4-0 from with Dutch, who we played against before on this channel in the past, not in battle reports, but in previous tournament recaps. Great guy, and he's been workshopping this list for a little bit now. So it's X Force with a Hydra Splash, and obviously it worked out pretty well for him. And then next we have, of course, Reed's X-Men list here. So if anyone's curious, obviously feel free to pause and take a look at these lists. But figured I would show them off for anyone interested. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll get into what we're here to talk about, which is my games. So first of all, I decided to run Guardians for this event, which isn't like me. I'm normally an Avengers player. Anyone who's been watching this series or this channel knows that. But I've been wanting to play Guardians since the third movie came out because that movie was fantastic. And unfortunately, just kind of due to the state of the game, Guardians are kind of the sweaty meta affiliation right now. And I feel bad running that at like, casual local nights and stuff like that. So I really don't play Guardians as often as I would like to because they are really fun. The characters are fantastic. And honestly, I wish they get nerfed already so that way I could run them casually and not feel bad about it. But such is life. So I figured, the kind of biggest event where all of the really, really good players are going to be, if there's anywhere I can get away with running Guardians to not have to feel bad about it, it's going to be here. So that's what we did. And this was our list here. So I think it's relatively standard. I don't really know, I don't follow the top tier metagame all that much. So I don't know if I'm running exactly what people there would be running, but I know I'm running some stuff that's just generally good there. So for affiliated characters, I have Star-Lord, I have Rocket Raccoon, I have Groot, Gamora, Drax, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Beta Ray Bill, and Agent Venom. So just to be clear, I also kind of came into this with a mentality on Cosmic Ghost Rider of there's only going to be a couple situations where I'm willing to drop Cosmic Ghost Rider on the board, most notably if my opponent also has a Cosmic Ghost Rider or if they have New Ultron, because I think New Ultron is kind of on a similar level of, at least personally, I really don't like playing against that model, but he also kind of counters them pretty well, so it's not even that great for Cosmic Ghost Rider, but it's just kind of my like, if you're going to bring the top of the meta models, then I am okay with bringing the top of the meta models. But otherwise, I didn't want to play Cosmic Ghost Rider too much. The only other scenario was if I ended up doing like the dream scenario of Demons Downtown 19 threat, where I could bring both Cosmic and regular Ghost Rider. Just because one of my locals calls it the biker gang list, and I think it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. So obviously, I wanted to see if I could get a chance to try it out. And spoiler alert, I did. It wasn't on that scenario, but it did follow condition one of my opponent had CGR on the list, so I felt like I was okay to do that. And yeah, and then obviously my other splashes, or my two splashes here being Ghost Rider, as previously mentioned. He's just really good in Guardians, and I think even though CGR exists and kind of replaces his role, like I said, I was trying not to run CGR very often, and I did only play him in one game. And regular Ghost Rider is a model that I love playing, and I think is still very, very good there. So yeah. Then we brought Thanos. We brought him with Space and Reality Gems. I love playing Thanos, and once again, it's just another model where he splashes really, really well in Guardians, and he's kind of a model where if I'm playing him as a splash, especially in Guardians, it's not really something that feels fair or fun to bring to my locals. Whereas it can do it at, kind of a big tournament like this one, I can kind of get away with a little more. And I say big with air quotes on that because obviously it's not, LVO or anything crazy like that, but still. So yeah, that was my list there. And then for getting into tactics cards and stuff like that, I brought Crew of the Milano, which I figure that's really, really important, especially with CGR here. Deal with the Devil for Ghost Rider, Deadly Duo for Rocket and Groot, Eyes on the Prize for Bill primarily, for an assignment, which I never actually got a chance to play, which is a shame because I did play Agent Venom a couple times, but is what it is. Galaxy's Greatest, which is just a ridiculously good card. Brace for Impact and Patch Up were my restricted slots. I think those are generally some of the better ones for Guardians. I can see an argument for Sacrifice as well, but I got good value out of both of these cards, so I'm not complaining at all. Lovable Misfits is just a fun card. I think I brought it once, maybe twice. And then No Matter the Cost, because No Matter the Cost is one of my favorite cards, and I didn't actually end up using it at all, but I told myself if I brought CGR I would, and then I just didn't, so whoops. But then going into my crises, for Secures, I really, really wanted to play 15 if I got the chance because the Adepticon, last year's Adepticon winner, they brought Thanos, Beta Ray, and Star-Lord at 15 threat, and it's a disgustingly fun list. It's really gross. It can feel super oppressive to play against. So once again, not something that I would feel great bringing at locals and casual nights and things like that. But bringing it here, I feel a little less bad about it. So I wanted to try and manufacture that if I could. So I brought two 15 threat scenarios, Sword and Gamma. And then I brought Demons Downtown for the biker gang. Obviously, we had to try to get that in if we could. And then for secure or not secures extracts, I was generally planning on running a little taller than kind of maybe your typical Guardians would be because obviously I wanted to be bringing Ghost Rider and Thanos when I could. So I didn't want too many points running around the board here. So I went for Deadly Legacy Virus because again, it's that 19 thread. It helps me manufacture that biker gang scenario. Montesi Formula, just because it's low scoring and I don't think the Mystic Beams are too penalizing to my team. Maybe Rocket and Groot, but the rest of it's pretty good. And then hammers, because hammers are fun. I don't have much more justification than that, but rolling more dice is fun. And at the end of the day, I'm playing Guardians, and with Thanos Guardians and stuff, I acknowledge there's still a lot of, control and technical stuff. But a lot of the time I was just kind of hoping to roll some dice and see what happens, because I think they're definitely a more attrition heavy faction, and that's kind of just a good opportunity to just throw some dice and have fun. So that was what we were going with. And yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and we'll get right into the games. So my first game here was up against a Emma player, Nirvanon. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. But that I don't think that was his actual name. It was just his username. But yeah, we played Superpower Scoundrels, which obviously was coming from his, and Legacy Virus. I had Prio, and I think it was just I really didn't like most of his extracts, so I went with that because I was pretty okay with most of his secures. Scoundrels is an awkward one, just because Rocket and Groot are, well, Rocket specifically isn't amazing there, Star-Lord isn't amazing there, but it's not too bad, and Scoundrels also works really well for models like Agent Venom. So he ended up picking 19th for the threat, and as tempting as it was to go Biker Gang, I didn't end up going for it. He did have Ultron, so I would have been within my rights for it, but I didn't do it. And yeah, I think let's see, does he have his list posted? If he does, I'll go ahead and throw that on the screen real quick. But then right here, hey, he does. So there's his list here. He's got, yeah, it seems like I'm pretty standard Emma list. I don't follow the top of them at all that closely, but I know Emma's very relevant there, and I think a lot of these models make the list. So obviously you have Emma, Ultron, Beta Ray, Rhino, a bunch of those other types of models. The list he ended up bringing into me was Emma, Ultron, Beta Ray, Black Cat, and Iron Man. And yeah, so I have pictures of this one, so we're just going to go ahead and get right into those. So I didn't get any pictures of deployment. I actually didn't do deployment on most of the games. I think I got it for one, but I did get a picture at the end of every round. So this was the end of round one. Where as you can see, we ended up scoring 4-4. So basically what happened here, I had Agent Venom deployed centrally. Also for what it's worth, I had Drax deployed centrally. So that was I guess I should say my team. I had Groot, Rocket, Drax, Agent Venom, Beta Ray, and Star-Lord. Over on his side of the board, he had Ultron, obviously the grunts, Emma Frost, Beta Ray, Black Cat, and Iron Man. So I'm going to try and get the order of operations as best as I can here, but for the most part, I just kind of know the events that happen, not necessarily perfect memory on the sequence of them. So Star-Lord and Beta Ray, they just both ended up hovering on this point. I think Star-Lord might have taken a pop shot at Iron Man, maybe got 1 or 2 damage in, nothing major. Iron Man had moved up previously and wasn't able to get in range of Beta Ray, even after a double move actually, because this air conditioner was just blocking him from being able to stay on the point and be in range of Beta Ray, is what it is. But Star-Lord was able to hit him because Star-Lord moved up a little further. For what it was worth, Beta Ray eyes on the prize, the hammer. It was like on top of this building and then moved back. Over on this side, he didn't grab it right away. He actually went for the middle. I think he had Beta Ray double move and pick up the hammer in the middle. So I saw that as an opportunity. First thing I did was I actually walked Groot up here to about where Drax was here, just in front of him. And the idea behind that was if I give him a hammer lead, so be it. But if he doesn't go for the hammer, because the only model that really would have been able to make it would have been Emma, then I can go with Rocket and have Rocket be protected by Groot. So that sounded like an okay play to me. He went with Emma and he moved her up and he decided to attack Groot instead of going for the point, which made sense because he would have been abandoning this point. He would have had to send Black Cat or someone over to score his back secure. So, and I would have been able to punch him with Rocket on that side. So he does that and he gets the trigger as well as like 1 or 2 damage, I think, on Groot. Nothing too crazy. So he gets Groot to, actually, no, it was no damage. I specifically remember this. It was no damage. But he gets Groot to take a walk, so Groot walks over here, which now kind of screws up that play, but also Emma's already gone, so I don't really have to worry too much about Groot just dying, or Rocket just dying. So I had Rocket go, and he picks up the hammer on that side. Or, it wasn't hammers, it was Legacy Virus. I keep saying hammers, I'm so sorry. That's gotta be confusing. Then at this point, I didn't have anybody on the back point, so I just double moved Drax there. I pretty much gave up on this point. I let him put all of his models into position here. He tried to go after Rocket with the grunts. I think they might have been just out of range. I don't think they actually got a shot off, so he ends up double moving them so they're within range 2 of both Rocket and Drax. And then my final activation, I don't remember quite if it was the final one of the round. The final one of the round might have been Cat or something. But I basically just jumped Agent Venom up onto this size 3 piece of terrain here, where I figured he would have cover. There was no reason to put him right in the middle of everyone, so I'd at least give him cover by hanging out up here. And because of stealth, I couldn't shoot Black Cat, so I shot at Beta Ray. Figured, you know, maybe I'll plink a damage or 2. That would be cool. I think I ended up plinking 1 damage, maybe 2, but I don't think so. Ignoring cover is nice here, and yeah, helps a little bit, but nothing too crazy happened there, and that was pretty much the round. So we both scored 4 because I obviously had the lead on the Legacy Cures, but he had taken the middle point. So yeah, we were going into the next round, and this was what the table looked like after that. So a lot of things happened here. Firstly, he went with Ultron because he had priority, and he blasted Agent Venom on top of the thing here. He ends up doing, I think, 1 or 2 damage. Obviously Agent Venom's totally fine. I had a winging it on him as well. Also worth acknowledging that I forgot winging it in the first round of 2 or 3 of my games, and all of those times it totally would have mattered. Stuff like Agent Venom would have had some rerolls into Beta Ray, which might have done 1 or 2 more damage. Mostly small things, but was definitely very relevant. So then, after Ultron fails to kill, or fails to do too much damage with that, he decides to throw the size 3 at me, and I did have brace, but I was kind of like, you know what? I have 4 physical defense, and Agent Venom's not even holding anything. If he goes down, it's not that big of a deal. So I decided to take it to the face. I end up blocking 3, which is pretty lucky, so I'll take it. And Agent Venom only takes 1 damage, so at this point he's taken about 2 or 3 damage. I don't remember if he did 1 or 2 with the initial attack, but this is where we are now. But now I no longer have the benefit of cover from being on top of it, so he goes ahead and he shoots me again, and I think he gets 1 more damage, or maybe 2, depending what number I was at. But I know I end this on 4 health remaining, or 2 health remaining rather, 4 damage taken, and Agent Venom has seen better days, but he's alive, which is a little more than I could safely expect with an Ultron able to double tap him. So that was nice. I think the grunts might have shot at Rocket, or no, I think it was Rocket, and they might have done 1 or 2 damage, but they didn't take him down, which was the important thing. So then I decided to go with Agent Venom because now he was in danger, and there was still a Bill that, could have probably got to him with an energy attack or something, and a cat, which I wasn't as worried about that one. But we go with Venom, and we basically web swing over towards this middle point here, and we don't want to punch any of the characters on this point because we don't care about any of them. We're going to make sure we're dominating one side of the board if we can. So I have him blast into Emma, who was threatening Rocket, who was still hanging out here in the open with a book. God, I'm really screwing this up today. Legacy Gear. So we throw 5 dice at Emma, and he chooses not to go into the other mode, which was really lucky for us because then we end up spiking the damage a little bit. We end up putting, I want to say, 4 damage in on Emma with that first attack. And really important here is you can't use the cover against Agent Venom, and this is part of why he was able to do so many effective things. But at the end of the day, I was also just kind of spiking dice a little bit. At this point, I don't think I even used the winging it. I don't think the rerolls would have allowed me to do any more because I think I had like skulls or something like that. So I was like, all right, well, if it worked once, we'll do it again. So I shot her again, took her out. I think I probably needed to use the winging on this one. Actually, I don't remember. It doesn't matter because he didn't get attacked for the rest of the game. But I do take out Emma here, which was really big because now he didn't have anything threatening Rocket, which was fantastic for me. I'm trying to remember exact order of operations on the rest of the things here, but what ends up happening is I think Star-Lord moves in and hit and runs. I don't know how he got the power for a hit and run. I'm going to think about this one for a second, actually. So weirdly enough, I think it was Groot. It was either Groot or it was Star-Lord. Maybe Star-Lord was, well, he wouldn't have already been in range from the first attack. So I'm not 100% sure how, but it's somewhere along the lines between Star-Lord and Groot. I ended up putting 3 damage on Black Cat, leaving her alive on actually 4 damage, I think, now that I think about it. Oh, I remember how this happened. There was in the previous picture, if I can go back here, this piece of terrain here. Once Agent Venom did all that damage to Emma Frost, we threw this at Black Cat, and she ate all of it. She ate 4 damage from that, which was really, really big. Then what she ends up doing is she moves over here, and she does her steal on Rocket. I think she also needed to do her like range 2 place as well to make sure she could get in. And she does her steal on Rocket, to which Rocket then turns around, blasts her in the face, drops her down, picks his legacy cure back up, and then walks over to the point. I think he then, somewhere along the lines, he sends Beta Ray over. At this point, I've already moved Groot back on, so there must have been another activation in here somewhere. But he moves Beta Ray over, and he basically throws, I think, Groot at his own Ultron grunts, because Ultron grunts had positioned themselves on my point. That was what it was. They shot Rocket once, and then they moved on to my point. So he throws he throws Groot at the grunts, and they explode, and they do a bunch of damage and power up Ultron, which is a thing, but not that bad. And then I ended up putting a root on Beta Ray with Groot. So actually, maybe he was still back here at the time. I don't remember. But Groot ends up putting on root on Beta Ray. Yeah, we're not trying to rhyme here. And that was mildly relevant, but it wasn't too big at this point in time. We end up just having Drax double move over to this point because he can. And come to think of it, he might have actually picked up the other Legacy Cure because I don't think I was in too much danger of losing it. So I don't know if Rocket was the one who picked it up here. Either way, one of the two had it, and it changes hands a couple more times. Over on this side, Beta Ray throws out a shock on Iron Man. Beta Ray did get to activate first over here. I think he might have passed once or twice as well because Emma never got an activation this round. Um, so Beta Ray throws a shock onto Iron Man, which is pretty relevant because then Iron Man goes to shoot me twice, and he isn't able to get the wild push, and he also, I think, only puts one damage through, maybe zero. Not very much is kind of the important takeaway here. And so Beta Ray's hanging out, he's hanging out, but Beta Ray still has his point, and I think Star-Lord basically just double moved to get onto that one. He might have thrown a hit and run and maybe a shot at Iron Man along the way, but I don't think it's super relevant. So yeah, I end up scoring the middle here because I had 2 models to his 1, and a pretty good turn all around for the Guardians here. So we go into the next one, and let's see here. So I'm gonna take a look at this for a second. All right, so a bunch of things happen this turn. First of all, I think he started it with Ultron again, but instead of going into Agent Venom, who was still hanging around on 2 health because he hadn't had a chance to heal up. Also, that poison is Star-Lord's. Yeah. He actually decides to go into Star-Lord. So he drops both of his attacks into Star-Lord. I think the second one might even have been a spender. And actually using I want to say the spender, he destroyed the pole that was hanging out here to bring his grunts back and staggered exactly where they are. He ends up leaving Star-Lord alive on 1, if I remember correctly, which was really, really lucky for me, so I'll take it. Then what happens on this side is basically, so actually, first things, I had Agent Venom go, and no, this happened after. What did I do first here? I don't remember. I might have had Rocket or Groot do something. I'm not 100% sure what the order of operations were on this, but Emma steals the objective from whichever one of them had it. I don't remember which one. And she ends up positioning herself about here, and then I think she also staggered, I want to say Drax. She staggered somebody. She did her big attack. I think she staggered somebody. It wasn't Agent Venom. Actually, it might have been Groot. I think it was Groot. She staggered Groot, and then she stole the objective, and then she hopped over here. So what I did was I went with Agent Venom, and he web swing over here to this point, and then he dropped a really nice beam on Emma Frost and Black Cat. This ended up bringing both of them to exactly 2 health, which was really, really good for me. So then Agent Venom goes and he fires off just his regular shot into Emma, which does take her out. So she's down, she's out of the game. That leadership is gone, which is really, really big for me. And Black Cat's alive, but she's on 2, so I'm relatively confident in finishing her off. I didn't quite have the distance, and I might not have had the power to throw her or the car, if I remember correctly. So we had Agent Venom's turn there. I think at this point he chose to pass. So we end up finishing her off between Rocket and Drax. I actually think it was just Drax. Drax just like punched her and she dropped. I think I had to double tap, so it was definitely Groot who got staggered. So we drop her, and that's great. We pick up the objective, and now Drax has it for sure. Then over on this side, things were a little interesting. He ends up double moving Beta Ray over and throwing my Beta Ray medium after my Beta Ray had activated. My Beta Ray and his Iron Man basically just did their little thing of shooting each other, I think. But yeah, I unfortunately kind of had to concede something to his Beta Ray just because he had not priority, but the opposite of it. He was going last, so because I was starting to yeah, actually, how does this work? I'm confused now. What it was he was passing a lot and he still had Beta Ray over here, and I didn't expect him to bring him all the way over here, so I think I went with my Beta Ray to try and deal with Iron Man. I think what I did was I moved forward, I threw the size 4 at Iron Man, which he braced, and that was kind of expected, but I did just want to burn it for the sake of burning it. And then I moved back, and then he double moved Beta Ray over and threw me away. I was mostly okay with this. It does mean he gets this side of the board, but also I already had the point lead at this point, and I was still pretty confident on this side of the board with the extract lead as well. Star-Lord ends up doing a bunch of like hit and run moves, and I think I ended up putting him over here off of the point. I think there was a reason behind this, or maybe he did end up getting dazed this round. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was either for the sake of trying to keep him alive, or um, for oh yeah, it was to keep him alive because I was worried about he was thinking about having Iron Man kind of start shooting at him, so I didn't want to put him on the middle. Um, I think that was the reasoning behind it, but I don't remember for sure. Either way, I scored up this round as well. As you can see, the final score here, I ended up being at 13 points, so I only needed 3 to go into the final round, where this was the final board state. So I'm trying to remember exactly how this played out. I'm gonna think about this for 1 second. Yeah, so at this point, he's definitely on the back foot. I only needed 3 points to win. So I think he started with Ultron, and you can see the dates token on Star-Lord. So I think he finishes off Star-Lord pretty much right away. I think the Grunts, no, I think the Grunts actually failed to do it. If I remember correctly, because they were still staggered at the start of this round, so I think they shook it. They shot Star-Lord. They failed, so he had to burn an attack to kill Star-Lord. Um, Maybe they succeeded. I don't entirely remember. But at this point, he was in a pretty rough situation with the rest of the board, so he ends up having to move to get in range of, I want to say, it wasn't Agent Venom he was going for. Oh, he didn't move. He was still here, and I think he was blasting Drax, and he tried to shoot him again, or maybe it was Groot. I don't entirely remember. I don't think it matters all that much. Um, he shoots one of them, doesn't kill them. He throws the air conditioner that was in front of Tony, also doesn't kill with that. So that was a thing. And then basically Drax, Agent Venom, I think, plinked some damage into something over here. I don't remember what. I think at this point Black Cat's already off the board, so it wouldn't have been her. I think he just tried to plink some damage into Ultron and then web swung away because I knew at this point that if Drax with the objective had survived and I had someone on at least 2 points, it was just my game. So after Ultron was done, I was relatively confident on this side of the board. So I end up having Drax go, and I throw Ultron, and I hit him a bunch, and I get him off the middle point, and I'm standing there myself. So that's an extra kind of barrier of things he needs to do. He ends up having Beta Ray go, and he just double moves over here and throws Drax away, so I'm not getting that extra point, which, fair enough. I think I ended up having Groot try to go for it, but because he was staggered, he didn't make it there, obviously, and I think that was pretty much the end of it. I might have thrown a root out on his Beta Ray or something like that again. Don't remember exactly why Groot's standing way over there, but oh, I went to go punch Ultron. That was what he did. At this point, I was just trying to kill Ultron out of spite. Rocket also, for what it's worth, made 4 attacks into Ultron, one of which was a Hadron Enforcer for a big ol' 0, so that was great. Um, my Beta Ray just moved back on the point and hung out. I made sure he was just at a 4 by Iron Man, so he'd only get to punch me once. And then Iron Man moved over, tried to fried AI and attack into Groot, but did leave him alive as well. So that ends up being the final board state. I unfortunately never took down Ultron because I couldn't get any more damage into him for the rest of the game. But yeah, I score out here, and that was the round. So it was a good game. My opponent played well, and yeah, it was definitely not what I would consider a easy, soft, nice, like low thinky game for a start of a tournament. So that was a thing. I was definitely going into the next rounds with a oh boy, I've already this was a good thinking one, but the lunch break was after this one, so it wasn't too bad. Anyways, on to round two. So round two was into David Vino, and I've played against him before. He's a really nice guy and a great player. So he was playing Web Warriors today, and unfortunately he didn't post his list, so I can't show what he was running. But once again, I do have pictures of the game, which is great. We were playing Hammers, and you can see why I was getting confused before, and Cosmic Invasion. So Hammers, of course, was coming from me. Cosmic Invasion was coming for him. He did win the roll to go first, which is why he got to choose, and this was a scenario I was dreading, the all D maps, but I think I had a pretty good list to handle it, and as you can see, it ended up being a really, really close game that came down to some really, really tight things. So it was a fantastic game, and yeah, we played 16 Threat because I had a list that worked really, really well there, and yeah, we'll just go ahead and get right into the pictures here. So this was the end of round one. Once again, I didn't take pictures at round zero. I also forgot winging hits on round one as well. But yeah, so again, I'm going to do my best to get the order of operations correct here. But basically what we did was, because these were the ones that push you and power you up, I had Star-Lord basically backstopping names. Ghost Rider sitting on this point in case I got the critter wild that would have allowed Ghost Rider to get the free long move, and the push would have been relatively inconsequential because it wouldn't have moved him all that far. And that was how things worked out. Ghost Rider ended up getting 3 power round one, which was fantastic. And he got pushed, but not very far, so he was still pretty free to do whatever he wanted on his turn, which was great. So that was a really nice start for me. And yeah, he had prio, so he had to go first, and he ends up doing the I think it's Cat and the Spider is the card to throw Black Cat here, and I should go over lists. He had 3 Threat Peter, he had Black Cat, he had Miles, he had Gwen, and he had Spider Woman. I had Ghost Rider, Star-Lord, Gamora, and Agent Venom. So he does the play that lets him like throw Black Cat up, so she like moves in front of him, gets thrown up. She ends up exactly within the range 1 there, so she's able to pick it up for free, and then she moves back to exactly where you can see her here, just kind of sticking out there. And then I end up, I think I might have did just like Star-Lord or something, get him out of the way. So he was just chilling on my back point, and he did end up picking up the hammer, because if Ghost Rider picked it up, he wouldn't have been able to do the free long move, so obviously we wanted to prioritize that if we could. So that was great. Then I think he ends up going over to, or he might have just done Miles next and had Miles pick up his backhammer. At some point, I made the first move over here. I had Gamora run over to the point and pick up the hammer on this side, and I wedged her right up against the building to make it really awkward for Gwen to pull her at all. Then he has Spider-Woman go, and in one long move, she makes it up here. So she makes a range 2, well, range 3 attack, but at range 2, so I won't benefit from cover. Attack into Gamora, and she does like 3 or 4 damage, as well as getting a couple wilds. So as you can see, I got shocked and stunned here, which was a little unfortunate, but not too bad, because I did survive at least. He then glided over to be here, so he was contesting the point as well. At this point in time, I bring Ghost Rider up, and I blasted into her a little bit. You can see I put the Hex on her. I also think I did like 1 or 2 damage. It wasn't too much, but it was enough. And then I used my second action to just move on to the point, because I wanted to make sure, obviously, that I was contesting it. So actually, sorry, I had to do that either way. The long move didn't quite get me into the range 3. It got me like here. So I had to do the medium move first, which unfortunately meant I was in range 2 for the attacks, but is what it is. I still got the Hex, which I couldn't complain at all about. And then over here, actually thinking back, I did no damage. I just got the Hex. Over here, I end up just double moving Agent Venom to chill on the point. And he moves up Spider-Man and does an impact webbing, which does get me off of the point because he got the wild, which was a little unfortunate, but again, not too bad, and I can't really complain. So this was the state at the end of the next round, and there's a few things to unpack here, so I'm going to try and figure out exactly what happened. But, so I think I started out on this side, actually, and I want to say I went with Gamora first, who basically just double tapped into Spider-Woman, and unfortunately only got like 2 damage onto her, which wasn't great, but I also forgot that I had a hammer. As we noticed, we both kind of forgot about all of our hammers for the first few attacks of the game. Whoops. But it was a thing. I did maybe a couple damage to her, and I don't remember why she ended up being kind of in the corner there. I didn't have any pushes or anything on my attack, so I think she didn't fall back. I don't know exactly how that happened. The more I think about it, actually, I'm a little confused, but I know that ended up being her position. I'm gonna think about this for a second. Right, the portals pushed everyone around. That is how that works. So she ended up being pushed to the edge of the board there. Gwen also ended up being pushed, as you can see, by her final position there. Ghost Rider was also pushed, which again is fantastic for him because it just means he has the ride online right away. Star-Lord was also pushed, if I remember correctly, which was a thing, and Agent Venom might have been too. I think actually my entire team got pushed this round. Or no, Agent Venom wasn't on the point, so no, he wasn't. That's later. But yeah, I think both of them got pushed, which was fine for me. Those 2 models also got pushed off the point, which was great because now I had kind of a little bit more room to work with over here, so that was cool. And yeah, I end up going with, I think, Gamora first, and I do a couple damage into Spider-Woman, which is all fine. And then I don't remember where he went next. I think he went with Spider-Woman, and he actually drops Gamora here, picks up her thing on Spider-Woman, which is a thing. It's fine. We end up going with Ghost Rider, and it was either Ghost Rider or um, Gamora, who just completely dummies Gwen. She goes right down, and I think maybe a couple more damage ends up going into Spider-Woman on this side. Um, so that was a thing, and I think no, I don't think Ghost Rider ends up getting a hammer yet. I know eventually he does get it, but spoiler alert. Over here, he ends up putting Miles back on the point and impact wings me again once or twice. He doesn't end up getting the push this time, but he does do like one damage, I think, between the two attacks, which I'm not complaining. I had cover, so I wasn't too worried, and you know, 4 dice physical. So then we go ahead and we web swing back on, and we just start going into him. And of course, Agent Venom is really good here because not only does he ignore stuff like cover, but he also doesn't let you reroll your dice. So he just dummies Spider-Man there. I actually think I got him in one shot. I think I might have used the winging it for it, but I didn't really need to because I had another one, and I think I just pretty much chilled with the second action. Um, and then for what it was worth with Star-Lord, I think I basically just moved up, did a hit and run, and came back. This was before Agent Venom had gone, and I don't think I actually did anything with that. I'm pretty sure it was all Agent Venom. So Star-Lord didn't really do anything. Maybe he did one or two, because I remember he had the power to do it again next round. So that was a thing. But yeah, nothing too special over there. He ends up moving Black Cat just to go hang out with Miles because they're his objective holders and he doesn't want to give up on those. But this round I do end up scoring up. I end up taking this point and no, I didn't score up. How did that happen? So he ends up scoring 4. He has 3 from his back point alone here with the 2 hammers and the point, and he has a 4th from Spider-Woman. I end up scoring, I guess, just 3, because I know I scored less than him this round, which actually totally makes sense, because at this point in the game, I have none of the hammers, because he would have 1, 2, 3. Where's the last hammer? This is throwing me off. Last hammer's on Star-Lord, so maybe this wasn't the round that I dummied Spider-Man over here. Maybe we just tied this point. That's entirely possible. I know what happens eventually, but that or we miscounted, which is also possible. But either way, we're going to go into the next round here where, oh, that was the previous round. We're going to go into the next round here where basically what happens, and there's a bunch of stuff to unpack here, but on this side of the board, I want to say it was Gamora who kind of popped off. She took out. No, it was Ghost Rider. I totally went with Ghost Rider first here. Um, he ends up getting a really sweet beam on both Gwen and Spider-Woman. Doesn't end up doing anything to Spider-Woman, which is what it is. Or maybe he did 1 or 2, and because she ends up falling back to go up there. Maybe that's no. I did do Gamora first. I think I punched Spider-Woman. She falls back and goes up there where I can't reach her anymore. And then I think I just went hard into Gwen and took her out. No, because we know I got the beam. So I don't remember exactly how this went. But I end up using the long move to chase the fallback. I remember that much. And I do end up taking her out and picking up a hammer on Ghost Rider. Really importantly that it was on Ghost Rider. Also during this turn, I think before this he went hard into me with Spider-Woman. Maybe it was Spider-Woman. Did a bunch of damage to Gamora, or maybe that was what Miles did. Actually, that is what Miles did. So Miles came over after that and did a kick into Gamora, did a bunch of damage to her, brought her down to like 2 health remaining, and threw her at Ghost Rider, who I decided to take it. I actually braced it on Gamora, but I elected to take it on Ghost Rider because I wanted the extra power for chasing in the future turns. And was fairly confident he didn't have the hard hitting stuff on this side to really confidently take down Ghost Rider without without letting him activate. So I was relatively confident in doing that, and it worked out okay for me this turn because it meant I was still able to get the point, and of course I had taken the hammer on this side, so that was good. Black Cat pretty much stayed where she is, and then over on this side, this was the turn that Peter dummied Agent Venom, so I don't know what happened with the previous round because I feel like there's another point that I'm missing. But I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Um, Peter dummied Agent Venom though, and Peter was dazed at this point. So what I did was I had Star-Lord move over, take a shot at Peter with a hit and run. I might have done 1 or 2 damage. It's not that important. Peter ends up on this point, which scores it for me. And this was the first turn where I did flip the scoring. So I was scoring 4 and he was only scoring 3. So that was good. As you can see, we were 10 for me and 11 for him into the next round. So this was the board state at the end of the next round. So Star-Lord and Agent Venom. Actually, this was the board state at the end of the game. Did I miss a round? I missed a round. Whoops. So in this next round, or maybe I didn't. This might have just been the final round. No, this is the second last round. There's one more. Star-Lord ends up taking down Peter on this side. I end up sending Agent Venom over here to score my back point. Over here, Miles ends up taking down Gamora and leaving Ghost Rider relatively low, but we do take out Spider-Woman on this side. I think that was Ghost Rider's activation that does that. And Ghost Rider is left here on 1 health, which is really, really rough because it's going to be his prow going into the next one. Where, did I take a picture of the final board state? I did not. So what ends up happening here is we establish very quickly that actually Star-Lord, during this round, I think, so Agent Venom finished Peter with 1 attack, and then he web swung and moved over here is what happened. Because what Star-Lord did this round was he moves out here, barely has line of sight. We had to call a judge to make sure because it was so tight. But barely gets line of sight on Black Cat, takes the shot at her, does no damage, I think, because actually doing 1 damage would have been really big. But then it's a hit and run, so he goes back. Oh no, what it was after calling a judge to measure it and everything, we have this realization that Black Cat has stealth. So it didn't matter. So I moved out and moved back on because nothing mattered. Agent Venom ends up down here. And now we're going into the final round, and I don't remember how close the score was, but it was extremely, extremely close, and every little movement was going to matter. So he ends up going with Miles first because he does have priority this time. He drops Ghost Rider, which sucks because then now Miles gets 2 hammers, and then Miles just web swings and walks away, and that's the end of that. I can't chase Miles over there, so Miles is scoring him 2 points no matter what. So I'm left with 1 option really, and he did get pushed by the portal on Black Cat, so she's kind of hanging out in the open here. So Agent Venom, he web swings onto this building here, and he throws a grenade at Black Cat, and unfortunately doesn't do any damage with that grenade, but he does light her on fire because that's guaranteed, so that's great. And I do of course have a winging it token on him, which I'm not allowed to use against Black Cat, so that sucks. At this point, I think I did have Galaxy's Greatest, though, so Agent Venom is throwing extra dice on these attacks, if I remember correctly. I think I had it on Gamora, and I think it was on him. It just never reached Star-Lord, because he actually never ended up getting flipped this game. So that was a thing. Oh, and for what it's worth, the turn that Peter took out Agent Venom was his all-webbed up turn. He did that over here and dropped him. But anyway, so I web swing up, I throw a grenade, I get no damage, because this is basically for game. If I can take her out and pick up her hammer, it means he's only scoring 2 points, and I'm scoring enough that it's fine, because Peter would be worth 2 points, and at that point, Venom would also be worth 2 points, and we were only like 1 point apart or something like that. So actually, I think it would have tied and went to another round, but at that point, Miles is in a corner and really doesn't want to come back to the rest of the board, so it's just my game. But Agent Venom then throws his regular attack into Black Cat and ends up getting a really, really good roll, which leaves her alive on exactly 1 health. So at this point, remember, Agent Venom is right on the edge of this building, and she's about here. And as you can see, these buildings were all marked with their size, so all of them are a little smaller than you would expect them to be, just because for playability purposes. So this is only a size 3, so we are like, well, we can actually throw this at you. We couldn't throw her, we were just at a range 2 on her. But we were close enough or we were obviously close enough to the building to throw it. So we measure out the range small, and we were like a millimeter out on this one. was one of those things where if the building hadn't been obstructing my range 3 place, I probably would have been in, and it was so close that it was another one where we ended up calling a judge and just being like, hey, this is for the game. Are we in or out? Because this building was really awkward to measure the small from, and then there's the height difference and everything like that. So it was super close, but it does end up being just out, and it's a totally fair ruling. So we can't throw the building at her, and she survives and just double moves to the corner with Miles. So at this point, I am scoring big ol' like 2 points this round, which is what it is. And he ends up taking this game. So well played to him. He played pretty well, and he made the right calls, especially near the end of the game, with just running away with everyone and not sticking around and taking any unnecessary risks. So well played to him. There's definitely a couple things I might have done better. One of the things I was discussing was maybe had I web swung and then moved Venom and then shot her, because I would have needed to generate at least 1 power at this point, but just do a regular shot into her. If I do any damage, then I get the size 3 building thrown at her, which I think is slightly higher odds, but is what it is. Small little things like that might have turned the game, but there's no guarantee. And actually, I wouldn't even have been able to pick up her hammer there, so it would have just been slowing down his points. And I don't know if that would have been enough, so not sure. But either way, that was round 2, and on to round 3. So round 3 was into, whoops, round 3 was into Donald McLean, who was playing Guardians, and so this was the first mirror, and we ended up getting Sword Base and Scrolls Infiltrate, and interestingly enough, we could have actually ended up running the exact same thing here. It was his prio, so I got to pick threat, and I picked 15 because I wanted to try the Thanos, the Thanos Adepticon list and see if it worked as well in Sword Base as it does on Gamma. I was a little skeptical because there are more points and they're more spread out, but yeah. So let's see if we can pull up his list real quick. So let's see, is his name in the thing? Might have been faster just to there it is. There's his list. And he does have it posted, so it's relatively similar to mine. Nebula and Mystique are different. He didn't have Agent Venom or Ghost Rider in his list, and his scenarios were relatively different, actually. His extracts were entirely different, and we ended up pulling Scrolls, which was terrifying for me. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump right into the pictures for this one. So this was the board state at the end of round 1 here. So for my team, I brought the Adepticon list. So I had Thanos, Beta Ray, and Star-Lord. So pretty simple on that end. He brought something a little different. He still had Star-Lord and Beta Ray, but for his other 8 threat, he brought Drax, Rocket, and Groot. So for round 1, nothing too interesting ends up happening. Groot goes and picks up his side scroll. I went for the middle one with Beta Ray, failed the roll, got pushed this way, which I think I had already put up Star-Lord on this point at this point. And then I tried to walk back to this one and was just out. You can see it looks like it's pretty close there, but it's not quite in the 1. It was like 1 and a bit. So is what it is. I end up having Thanos go and pick up the other scroll. He succeeds against being pushed and walks back onto the point, so all is good there. On his side, he basically just moves everyone up, flips his own points, and I think Rocket took a pot shot at Star-Lord, didn't do any damage if I remember correctly, maybe did 1, but nothing too bad. And then on this side, I think he might have got a pot shot at Thanos, but again, nothing too bad. So that was round 1, relatively uneventful, but obviously this is going to be a violent match going into the next one, which is how it ends here. So a bunch of things happen here. First thing I'll talk about is kind of what happens over here, because this is relatively straightforward. I have Star-Lord shoot Drax, I think, and then hit and run a second shot to go over here, because he ends up putting the token on me. Actually, Star-Lord shot Drax round 1. That's how I put the token on me. So I basically shot him twice, and then I hit and ran off of the point. He moves Drax onto the point and flips it, which, yeah, makes sense. So I have Beta Ray walk over here, punch, what's his name, Drax. I think I did 1 damage to him, which is all I really wanted, because that gave me the throw online, which I actually had online either way. But I got the stun, which was important. So I throw him away. And I'm sitting on 1 power still, which is great, because that means I'll have this throw again next round. So we send him away. He's taken maybe 2 or 3 damage at this point. Between, well, it must be at least 3, because that means Star-Lord did damage on the first turn to have the Vengeance token. Meanwhile, over here, I decided to have Thanos go stir things up. So Thanos space stones himself over to here, punches Star-Lord in the face twice, and I Cosmic Portal Beta Ray away. Ends up leaving Star-Lord alive on one, which was a little unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And he retaliates a bunch. He ends up putting, I think, 6 damage into Thanos this turn, between the 3 models piling into him here. And I think Rocket might have shot him as well. But I do end up flipping this point here, which is really big, and he's unable to flip it back. I think he tries with Beta Ray and fails the flip, so that's great. And thankfully for me, he didn't go for the spender on Beta Ray to try and shock me. He went for the builder in the hopes of building the power to throw me off the point, and it didn't work out for him, so that was great for me. So that was the round. I start to take a point lead here, and now I'm just kind of hoping I can press that for the rest of the game. Speaking of the rest of the game, this is the next round here, and I end up having Star-Lord join in the fight here. I think I did a hit and run attack to get up here, and then I think I finished off his Star-Lord was what I did once I got here. I don't think I did anything super meaningful with the first attack. It might honestly have just been a move action now that I think about it. So we do end up finishing off his Star-Lord this round. I end up having Thanos do... Oh, I also forgot to take advantage of the fact that I had 3 of these. Whoops. Thanos does a bunch of rude stuff over here with positioning and things. I think I end up doing like 3 damage to Beta Ray this round though, so it wasn't my hardest hitting round. But we do finish off Star-Lord, and we get Beta Ray to half health. We also end up punching Groot for a bunch of damage, which might have been a mistake, but we end up bringing him down to a little under half. I think we did 4 damage to him, which is not bad. He ends up dazing my Star-Lord with his team. I think Groot spendered him, actually, if I remember correctly. And then rooting Thanos, which is honestly just rude. He succeeds the flip this time around, or maybe threw... No, he couldn't have thrown Thanos because that would have staggered him. And I don't have the stagger on him. So I think he just succeeds the die roll on the flip here, which is what it is, sure. But yeah, he ends up putting his entire team into Thanos here, and oh, for what it's worth, Star-Lord patched up, so that's why Thanos is still alive, because yeah, he was on 2 health the round before, so we patch him up for 5 after we move in and do a Death Decreed shot to finish off his Star-Lord. And yeah, that's actually why I didn't hit and run, was I wanted the power for that, so that was how that rolled out. So Thanos survives, but he does manage to flip the point back, which is what it is. Meanwhile, on this side, Drax comes in. He succeeds at flipping the point, or maybe he failed. Honestly, it doesn't matter all that much, because then Beta Ray just decides to go real hard into him. He'd already taken 3 damage at this point, so I only needed 3 more, and I think I double tapped him because I already had the power to throw if I needed to, and I end up taking him down, which is great. So I dropped him. He was stunned from the previous round too, so he barely got any power out of this. And I end up just dropping the point over there because Beta Ray already has one, so I figured maybe I'll send Star-Lord or someone back for it. What's really important about this too is I actually still had Eyes on the Prize online, because I didn't end up using it round 1. I brought it, and then as we started playing, I decided to put Beta Ray down the middle and was kind of like, this is fine. Maybe it'll come up later. And it did, because as we go into the next round here, oh boy, this is messy actually. Let me figure this out for a second here. Okay, so we're actually missing a round in here, which is kind of unfortunate. So what ends up happening in this next round is I want to take out his Star-Lord as quickly as possible, because him having leadership is not great for me. So I think I went with Thanos first, or actually I decided Star-Lord was better odds to take out Star-Lord, and my Thanos was still okay on health, so I wasn't too worried about this. So what I end up doing is I do a builder first into a Star-Lord. I do like 1 or 2 damage, and then I Death's Decree a spender into him with a hit and run. And that ends up leaving him alive on, I think, 1 health exactly. He fallbacks to behind the point here, which, sure. Or no, maybe he fell back on the first one. Either way, I leave him on 1 health. And then the second attack would have went into like Beta Ray and whiffed or something, because I know Beta Ray was still on 3 when I went into him later. So the second attack really isn't that relevant. But I end up using the hit and run to go over here, and I used Eyes on the Prize at the beginning of the round because I'd planned this out to pick up this extract here. So great, we have an extra scroll. But unfortunately, it pushes me, and I end up down here, which not so great. Over here, things kind of continue playing out the way they have been. He, again, I think either fails or succeeds, and then I don't care by throwing him away. But either way, nothing actually changes down here. And then on this side, Rocket and Groot combined, I think, end up taking down Star-Lord. Or actually, it might have just been Rocket. Let me double check if he's in the final picture. It might have been the final round that he ends up taking him down. Yeah, it is. Star-Lord survives, scores me the scroll that one last time. He puts a bunch more into Thanos, but I do end up getting to activate Thanos before he gets to take him down. So Thanos does his control shenanigans. I send Beta Ray Bill even further away. I might have actually dropped him this round if I remember correctly. Um, and I think I just had to put the scroll like on the point sort of thing. And I end up sending Groot a little further away as well to try and prevent as much as I can. I have to leave Star-Lord alive though because of where he put him and making it awkward for me to do anything to him. And the root's also just kind of slowing everything down a little bit for me. But I have a pretty productive turnover here. I misplace a lot of models and I have the point on my side. But then he does come back and I think he neutralizes it again and brings it back to being two for each of us. But Star-Lord does survive this round, and he does end up actually flipping Thanos, if I remember correctly, or maybe that was the next round. I'm not 100% sure on this. But I know going into the final round, what he ends up doing is this is the round that he flips Thanos. He takes out Thanos and drops his extract, but at this point, I already had this under my control. Groot's over here. Beta Ray's way back, or Beta Ray's been taken down by Thanos before this happens. So, and I only needed like 2 or 3 points to win the game at this point. So I'm feeling relatively confident. He ends up pretty much one-shotting Star-Lord with Groot, or with Rocket, if I understand, or if I remember correctly, which is kind of important, but not really. He ends up stealing his scroll as well. And so now the only scrolls are, there's an extra one here, and I don't remember how that happened. Oh wait, there's 4 in the game. Of course, that's exactly how that happened. So Rocket has one, Beta Ray has one, and these two end up being on the ground because Groot, who only had 1 power and nobody left to punch, ends up just walking over here and flipping the point, which, fair enough. Beta Ray had been taken down that turn, and Star-Lord, I think, was the one who actually finished off Thanos. So, over on this side of the board, Drax tries to flip the point, fails to flip it, so we're not worried at all. Beta Ray just moves over here, makes sure I have both of these, which is great, and that ends out the game there. Beta Ray scoring me 4 points in the final round, pretty much by himself, because he did most of this work. I guess not this one, but still. Really, really good turn for him, and Thanos did his job, so that was what was important. And yeah, it was a really good game, and yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. So my final game was another one into an Emma list, and it was against Steven Rohrer. I hope I'm not butchering that name. And we ended up pulling his cures, which was Intrusions and Montesi, and I'm certainly not complaining. I love Intrusions. Now, we'll see if he posts his list, but he did have a CGR in it, so he met the qualifications if I wanted to bring my own. And at this point, we had 19 threat on something that was a straight line, and I was kind of like, you know what, screw it. Worst case, we end up going 2 and 2. We're going to have some fun. We're going to run the biker gang list. So we'll see if he posted his list real quick here. It was Steven Rohr. Oh, I must have missed him. Oh, my thing is freaking out on me here. Let's see. There it is. Unfortunately, no list posted, but you guys will just have to take my word for it. CGR was in there. He didn't end up playing him, but he was a part of the list. So if I go ahead and I bring up the thing, I actually remember to get a picture of deployment this time. So Intrusions, Montesi, straight down the middle there. And he ended up playing Emma Frost, of course. He had Captain Carol. So that's obviously the second version, which is a big deal because she's a really, really good counter into, well, both Ghost Riders, but specifically CGR. So that was a thing. He has Gwenpool over here, Lizard, and Zemo. So relatively scary. But when we go into things, he had Prio, and I think the first thing he ends up doing is actually going for the middle one with Lizard. So he goes and he picks up the book, and of course I immediately follow that up with CGR. CGR's power roll wasn't anything too special, so I was playing a little risky, but I wanted to hold as much as I possibly could, so I bump him range 2. He ends up about here, and then he has to shoot Lizard once before I can pull him. So I shoot him, I do 1 or 2 damage, I think, and then I pulled him, and then I do 2 or 3 damage. And at this point, he's chilling like somewhere over here, and he's on fire, and he's got 2 health left. So this is looking great for me so far. Then I decided to wait a little bit, let him bring some other models into the fold before I continued on this kind of area of the board. So I end up going with Groot and or he ends up going with Carol, and I think he just puts her on the middle. I don't want to punch Carol. That sounds like a waste of time. So I go with Groot. I just hang out on this point here. He does have I'm a Baron after all if he wants to charge me, but he can charge Groot. I'm not that worried about it. So we're hanging out over here, and I think he does end up going with Zemo next, and he just double moves him over here. So sure, I'm not too worried about it, because then I just move Rocket up, and now it's my point. So yay, woo. Um, so we do that. We have Rocket and Groot chilling over here, and then he ends up going with Gwenpool and discovers that he is just barely unable because he has to climb to get within range one of this objective. He ends up putting himself on the edge of the building, and it's just out of range one, but it was the only part of the building he could actually reach with the climb. Just because of the way that this had been deployed, it wasn't great for him. So, I mean, I would say the advantage of picking table sides, but I actually just was feeling lazy and stayed on the side that I was on. Maybe if that had been in my way, I would have thought about it, but it wasn't, so is what it is. Then over here, I finally decide to finish things off with Ghost Rider. So Ghost Rider moves up. He's make sure he stays within one of the book in case I need to, but I just go for a 6 dice energy into Lizard, and I end up taking him down, and I think I had to use the Wing It or something, so, you know, not too bad. I end up picking up the one that was behind me, though, and I drop the other one in such a way that it'll be nice and convenient for Star-Lord. He ends up moving Emma. She just picks up the book. She has nothing in range, so I think he moves and ends up having 2 points. Or no, he doesn't end up having two models here. He actually hides her behind this piece of terrain here, kind of veering off towards this way, which is very relevant because turns out she's really good at dealing with Rocket. So I end up having Star-Lord go. He picks up the other book, and then he just double moves so I can tie the middle point, and I end up with a little bit of a point lead going into the next round, which is nice for me. So going into the next round here, this is where the board state ended up on the previous round, and obviously this being the last one, my memory is a lot better than the previous one, so I can actually talk through them before showing the board state, which is nice. So trying to remember exactly how this started out here, but if I remember correctly, I wanted to basically say, all right, I'm not too worried about many of the positions on this board. So I think we started with CGR and we basically just said Lizard was out of this game. I think we pulled him again to light him on fire right away, and then we just double tapped him, and I think that took him down if I remember correctly. So Lizard was off the table, and that was great. Then he ends up, if I remember correctly, this round, he goes with Emma, and he ends up dazing Rocket, which, yeah, that makes sense. Um, Not before going with Zemo and trying to double tap Rocket and doing a bunch of damage to Groot, but I don't think actually taking him down. Or maybe he did. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, um, does a bunch of damage to Groot, and I think one of them went down this turn. I don't think both of them did. So I don't remember how that happened, but it happened. We ended up having Star-Lord, I think, plink a bunch of shots into Emma, and I think he actually might have taken her down this round. He did end up transforming, but dice were pretty good to me, and I think Ghost Rider helped out with that. So we end up taking out Emma. As for Gwen, I'm pretty sure he just ends up walking her over here. Um, Carol, on the other hand, ends up making, I think, a pretty solid attack, if I remember correctly, into Star-Lord, and brings Star-Lord down relatively low, actually possibly drops him, and is really, really well powered up for the next round. So I'm a little worried about that going into the next one. And this is the game, or the ending board state of the previous round there. So, nope, we have skipped ahead here. We have skipped very far ahead. Now spoiling the entire game. I think we missed a round here. I could be wrong. Maybe this is when everything happened. Um, yeah, okay, no, this actually checks out. So what I did miss here was after everything that had happened here, and Rocket did go down this round, I know that for sure. I do end up dropping Emma, and that might have been with Star-Lord. I think there was a hit and run involved too to get to relative safety. But we do end up dropping Emma. We end up dropping the book over here for Rocket on a future turn. Gwen, I think, portaled over here, and didn't do anything of super substantial meaning. I think she like took a shot at Star-Lord, but she had to move before she could portal, so that was the thing. Doesn't end up doing anything meaningful. Again, maybe one or two damage. But I think I still stand by what I said about Carol getting powered up. And then Groot, who did end up surviving, drops a spender on Zemo. And then because of Zemo's counter strike, he's actually also able to then root him. And he also heals himself up, which is relevant. And then on the next round, um, I'm just going to go to the picture because apparently my memory on this isn't as great as I thought it was. He ends up going with Carol. Or I went first. So I think. Did I go first this round? Oh, I have to think about this some more actually. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure what happens was CGR came over here and took Emma out of the game, lit her on fire, did a bunch of damage to her, and then we also pulled Gwen off of the point and lit her on fire, which was also relevant. Um, he ends up bringing Zemo back in with a spender on Rocket because he didn't actually have the power to charge, but he was just barely in range of a spender. So he uses a spender on Rocket, ends up leaving Rocket alive on one and bleeding. So pretty relevant there. Gwen uses this end towards enemy or whatever it's called. She tries to deal with Star-Lord and looks like she actually succeeds because there's a book sitting there. So I'm assuming she actually dropped him that round. And might have done a little bit of splash into CGR, which is great because it meant he kept having power for things, which was pretty cool. Carol ends up going binary this round, and she drops a couple spenders both into CGR, and he ends up going really, really low. CGR, I think, goes down to like 2 health or something this round, but he does end up leaving him alive. He whiffs both of his throw triggers, which was really unfortunate for him. I did have brace up, I think, at this point still, so that was a thing, but yeah, so ends up leaving CGR alive, and actually I did end up using Brace because he tries to throw one of the Ghost Riders at the other. And then regular Ghost Rider, I think, just double tapped Gwenpool, or maybe regular Ghost Rider finished off Emma. I'm not sure 100% that CGR did it by himself, but we end up doing a bunch of damage to Gwenpool. At this point, she's on like 1 or 2 health, I think. And we also had some damage on Zemo at this point as well. So we're looking pretty okay here. Carol's still pretty much untouched, but that's fine because she's not really an objective here. So going into the next round, we ended up, I think Gwen ended up going early. She tried to move in. She did some damage to people. Star-Lord, you can just barely see him at the bottom there. He ends up picking up a book, hit and running, and just getting out of dodge. Groot ends up I don't know why he moved off of the point. I don't actually remember what the purpose of that was, but I think oh, Rocket ends up dying this turn. He actually dies to a splash damage from Gwen's spender. Which that's fine. CGR ended up being patched up and then brought back down to 1 HP this round. So that's where he's sitting right now. On a whopping 1 health, and the stun thankfully was very, very late into that, so it didn't really affect him at all. Zemo, we can see, actually ended up over here. I think he either charged or he didn't teleport, so I think he charged and then into like a spender. And again, that was stuff that was going into CGR. I think Groot's there just to see if I could get range on anything, and I couldn't, so that was fine. Ghost Rider at this point is also kind of low. Actually might have flipped this turn. But yeah, we basically just have a mosh pit in the middle here, but I've scored up a lot at this point because I've been able to hold on to most of the books, most of the rounds, and Ghost Rider has one right now still, and Star-Lord as well. So we're still doing pretty well on points, but it's a relatively low scoring scenario, so we are going into another round. And this ends up being the final board state, or not the final board state, the second last round board state. I don't know where the heck Zemo vanished to, because I'm pretty sure he was still alive at this point. So that's mildly confusing. I'm not 100% sure. But Carol has a really, really good turn. She ends up... I guess they killed Zemo here. Yeah, I think CGR must have killed Zemo. Or regular Ghost Rider, maybe, or someone. Some point, Zemo disappears from this board. I don't entirely remember how or why. But, Carol does a bunch of stuff this round, and this was actually after he'd transformed this round, so he'd started in normal mode. But what ends up happening here, because this is the final round of the game here. Oh, we also finished off Gwen. Did I miss that? I might have missed that. Yeah, so the round that happens after this, we end up finishing off Gwen. And Carol has an insane turn where she um this isn't the turn where she does that. No, this turn both of the Ghost Riders end up getting dazed. Not no worse than that. But we do take out Zemo, it looks like, with them and Gwenpool, so all he has left is Carol. And we actually did daze Carol as well here. I think I did a Power Cosmic Penance turn to her, and so I wasn't giving her too much power for it. And yeah, something about around those lines. Honestly, this is kind of foggy the last couple rounds of this. But going into the final turn after this was taken, it was Carol's activation. He had Prio, and he ends up going absolutely insane with her. She ends up dropping both of the Ghost Riders. I think both pretty much from full. I think CGR might have had 1 or 2 damage on him. Again, a little hazy on exactly when he dropped from the front side. But she ends up taking both off the board, which is absolutely insane and honestly just really nice to see Carol do. So that was cool. But at that point, Star-Lord and Groot had enough points to win the day for me. So for funsies, I ended up teleporting Groot over to try and kill Captain Marvel, but it didn't actually matter, and I didn't do it. But what we did do was we used the spender to throw her because she was on our injured side at this point, so we didn't actually want to kill her. Just to just to be very clear here, because our scoring purposes, it would have been better to let us score out the round. But we do end up using the spender. We throw her away. She doesn't end up dying, so that's good. And then, for fun, we rolled it out, but we basically talked and we were like, okay, at this point, we're gonna call scoring here. Star-Lord's gonna double move over to this, and we're gonna roll this last attack for fun, but if I kill you, it's not actually how this works. And we did, because it was fun. And we were both just kind of there at this point. We'd agreed at the beginning that we were just there for a fun, violent game and see what happened. So, yeah, that was what ends up going down. Carol ends up surviving, and honestly, if this had dragged to another round, I think there's a world where she tables me. Because I mean, Groot was at pretty good health, and Star-Lord was at full on his flip, but still, it's not out of the question. So that was a thing. But yeah, that was. Do I have a picture of the final board state? I do. Yeah, she actually ended up throwing this as well. We just didn't take it off the board. I don't know why. But this ended up being the final board state, and yeah, Groot didn't actually have to come over. She came to him because she was going to try and kill him as well, and just didn't kill him, and it didn't actually matter because Star-Lord won the game by himself. But that ends up being the final board state in a freaking bloody game, but it was really really good, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So a nice fun, just let's throw some dice and have violence game to round things out for the tournament. And that is going to do it for this tournament recap. My voice is absolutely dead. That was a lot of games, and I'm recording this, just a couple hours after the event itself. So I'm reaching my end here, so I don't have too much more to say. But yeah, Guardians are a lot of fun. I do really really enjoy playing them. I wish I could break them out more often, so I do hope they see some form of nerf in the near future, so that way I can play them and not feel bad about it. Because they're a lot of fun. I love these characters, and it was great. I actually ended up playing, I'm pretty sure, every single model in my list, and every single model in my list actually felt like they were mildly impactful. So that was really cool. That doesn't always happen when I'm playing my Avengers and stuff, which is nice to see that, I didn't just kind of pick one core and always play that. I was playing a little more varied teams. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, just in general, it was a really great tournament. There was a lot of really, really skilled players there. And yeah, I mean, I don't have too much more to say than that. Congratulations once again to the people who won. I didn't end up playing against any of them, but they had some great games from what I heard, just talking to other people. Um, and a few of my opponents did end up being runners up there. Like David Vino was actually on the top table, one of the two top tables at the end, so that was cool. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up this tournament recap. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you got something out of this, whatever you were here for, whether it was entertainment or to learn more about different metas and stuff like that. Hopefully you got something out of it. But that is all for me. So let me know what you guys think down below. And yeah, for once I was actually able to get pictures throughout the entire game, so that's great. I'm really happy about that, and hopefully that improves the quality for you guys a fair bit. Personally, I think that's a really big deal for videos like these, so I'm glad I was able to actually remember for every game. Um, but yeah, that is all for me. So once more, I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.